I would say that now, if you do have someone that is truly an awesome player and has a future, it would be hard to understand just how much pressure they're under. Parents, unless they've done it themselves, have no idea the burden that that kid carries and how much every day they live and die with each shot and each round, knowing that they're being judged and evaluated and measured.
Welcome to The Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf. I'm your host, Ryan Adams, and today's guest is the reigning 2024 Pac-12 Coach of the Year, Matt Thurmond. Matt is in his 9th season as ASU's head men's golf coach. During his tenure, he's led his teams to 24 tournament victories. They won the 2024 Pac-12 Men's Golf Championship. They were the 2021 National Runners-Up, and he's personally coached 11 Sun Devils to 18 All-American honors. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Now, you are having a heck of a year so far. So you just brought home for Team USA the 2024 Arnold Palmer Cup. And to add to that, you brought home ASU's Pac-12 National Championship. I mean, first of all, let's just start there. How's that feel to have that much winning under your belt in 1 year?
Well, it's funny you say that because I keep feeling like, man, it's been a terrible year. And this is probably some things we should talk about today in this podcast. But it's funny how you can kind of discount the successes and you focus on the failures. And it just feels like in many ways I failed this year. But yeah, when I look back, that Palmer Cup experience was really awesome. It was cool to be with the very best. I had one of the best players on my team and two on the international team actually competing against them. It was fun to see my own players leading another team, competing against them. And that was a really kind of lifetime experience for me. I was in Lahinch, Ireland, had a great staff to work with. I'm kind of mostly Irish by blood. It was great to feel like I was home again. Yeah, we pulled it off. It was a tight competition. We pulled it off at the end. And you referenced the Pac-12 Championship. Yeah, we won the Pac-12 Championship. That was a big triumph for us on a home course. Unfortunately, 2 weeks after that, we failed to get through regionals for the first time in a really long time. So it was a bittersweet one, but we're still forever the Pac-12 champions.
And nobody can take that away from you. Let's focus on the Arnold Palmer Cup, because I just have some kind of questions. Like, when you're taking that many kids across that many different time zones, first of all, how do you handle the sleep? How do you handle kind of getting them adjusted? And then you're going to Irish courses, which I'm assuming are very different than Arizona courses that, they're used to playing on. How do you handle those two kind of logistical aspects of getting them ready to play that type of course and then also adjusting their sleep?
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much we can do, to be honest with you. There's not much. We didn't have a lot of time. We couldn't go way early. We got there 2 days before. So we basically just made sure to talk about it weeks before, make sure they all had a plan. For some of the American kids, it's first time traveling over the ocean. And so they had never really been in a situation where they had 6-7 hours of time difference. It had always only been up to 3 hours or 2 hours. So it is a big thing. But basically, we just talked about it a lot. Gave them a few tips on travel and when to stay up and how much to hydrate and how to best manage it, and let them kind of figure it out on their own, knowing that it was going to be a challenge and that there was really no way around it.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, a few minutes ago, you talked about even in your own life where there's a lot of successes that are coming your way, but you have a tendency to kind of focus on the failures or the things that haven't gone well. And that is a very human, trait. And it also seems to be amplified in golf. So let's go back there for a second. And, when your players, when things aren't going their way in a round, maybe they get a bad break, maybe they just don't have their swing for a couple holes or a round. What are some tips and tricks that you share with your players to kind of help them to deal with that disappointment and to kind of right the ship and to not let any sort of errors or negative emotions compound to make things even worse?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm, the world's expert on this. Like I said, I'm giving you an example of myself struggling with it. I think it's something that's very difficult to deal with. I would say, and maybe this goes along with my last answer. For me, the best thing is just to recognize it and to be okay with it, instead of trying to act like it's not a thing or suppress it or, discipline yourself so much that it doesn't even happen. I mean, I just don't find that to be realistic. What I find is that it's best just to So yeah, it's tough. It's disappointing. Yeah, there's failure, and if you want to call it that, or disappointment, or not living up to your expectations is actually a major part of everyone's journey, and it's okay. Go ahead and let yourself feel some of that, and let it run its course, and get back to work. I don't know if that's the best thing, but I just have found that trying to act like it's not a thing has never really worked for me. I find that if you address it, be it for what it is, and really look at the reality of your situation, it's pretty quick to kind of move on and develop a plan. And there's such strength and confidence you get from kind of knowing your situation in a tough moment, and then finding ways to get yourself out of it, and finding little solutions. And that feeling of climbing back might even be more powerful than the feeling of never, having the dip in the first place. So I go ahead and let myself dip a little bit. I'd let our players dip a little bit, and then try to help them climb back out. And usually that feels really good.
Is it fair to say that that can only really be developed through just experience, like getting out there and playing in as many tournaments as possible, knowing your game? Or are there other ways that you can kind of fast track that mentally to kind of prepare yourself to handle those situations positively, even though they may be the first time that you're encountering them? Like, is there any substitute for just the experience, or are there other ways that you can do it?
Yeah, I think this experience is huge. I think learning from other people's experiences is huge too. I have 3 daughters myself, and there's nothing more difficult than watching them suffer or feel pain, and not meet their expectations, or not achieve their goals. Or, I mean, that is so hard as a parent. It's one thing theoretically to process it, but then when you see your own kids, and you want to take that pain away from them, you want to make it not hurt so much. You fast forward the learning process so they don't have to keep feeling that, the disappointment. And I mean, sometimes that's really hard, and sometimes you probably do need to take away some of that pain. But over and over again, I've just seen that when you go through it and you learn how to figure out, you learn how strong you are, and you learn that you can handle anything, that no matter what comes at you, you have the tools and ability to do it. I think that's just super empowering. Can you learn it by other ways? I don't know. I mean, I think I'm a reader. I like stories. I mean, I think you can learn a lot through education, and just understanding that is the life of anyone. That's the journey of anyone to any level of achievement. There's so many failures and struggles and mishaps and disappointments along the way. I mean, that is the journey. I think the more you're around that, the more your parents embody that, the more you read about stories of that, whether it's fiction or biographies or, real stories. I mean, that is life. And so accept it, and
So it's the night before the final round, and you got your whole team together, and you're going to be watching one inspirational movie. What's that go-to movie to, kind of relay some of those, grit and kind of those empowering like stories to kind of get the pump for the next day's round? What would be that one go-to?
yeah, you're not going to like this as a Canadian, but a few times we've had this situation. We watched Miracle. I mean, I don't think there's a better, more inspiring sports movie than Miracle. The American hockey team. Actually, a great movie just came out this last year, which is Boys in the Boat. That's also one that I would always recommend to a team. That was awesome. That one's particularly meaningful to me, as I was at the University of Washington for many years, and walked by the actual shell that they raced in the Olympics in all the time, and ran along the cut where they raced and trained. So that one's especially neat to me. But I think everyone would enjoy that movie. I don't know. Those two are really good.
Yeah, no, you can't go wrong with either one of those choices. Yeah, both great movies. So if my math is correct, you've been coaching for over 2 decades. Is that correct? If you were to kind of go back and when you're first starting your coaching career, what have you learned now that really surprises you as to what it actually takes to become a championship coach, to get the best out of your players, that you would never, like, it was almost counterintuitive, or you never would have thought of, all those years ago, is what actually is important to be the best coach and to get the best out of your players?
And that's a tough question. So that's one of those questions that you probably, you answer, and then 5 minutes later, you're like, yeah, this probably would have been better to say. But first, off the top of my head, I would say, what happens is you get older and you get more experienced and you learn more. You have this wealth of information in your mind, and you feel like you have more to offer. You feel like you know more you feel like you can help more, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not what I know. It's not what I've learned that matters. Well, the only thing that matters is how much I can help them know it. So a lot of people, as they get older, like me, I mean, they get frustrated that they can't kind of pass along their wisdom, or no one wants to listen, or they only listen to parts of it, or there's so much, I mean, you see that all the time. And the art of coaching is to figure out what they can learn when they're ready to learn something. And honestly, if I can instill 1% of what I've experienced, or what I think I know, or what I think I can offer, then that's probably success. So it's easy to feel frustrated, like I want to pass down everything I've learned and known. Well, that's not, they need to learn it on their own. But if I can share a little bit, I mean, that's big. So I guess that would be it. You go through, you think a coach knows everything. Coach has all the answers, that a coach, whatever the coach says, the players listen to and do all the time. That's not how it works. And I have good relationships with my players. It's not like they're shutting me out on purpose. It's just that we all, from anyone, only can learn so much. And so that's one of the challenges of the coach is being able to find the way to communicate to where the moment that they need something. Knowing that maybe it's only a few times a year that you can really, truly impact them, where they're in a learning state of mind. So I guess that would be it. We coach every day, but how much of it really matters? It's probably just a few moments throughout the year, and you got to be ready when those moments come.
I can just hear a lot of the listeners right now with maybe teenage boys or with kids that are right around that age, where they feel like, they're being tuned out a little bit, and that they're just like, if only they could listen to me a little bit more. And I'm sure that a lot of them are just kind of shaking their heads and being like, yeah, we know exactly what you're saying. You've been coaching young men, and you've been trying your best to kind of, and succeeding to get the best out of them. Everyone has different personalities. Everyone's coming from different backgrounds. How do you manage that? How do you, is there kind of like a one solution fits all, or is it to each individual player, just kind of through experience, knowing when to press the gas, when to press the brake, when to, like, I guess what I'm asking is if you could distill it down to like maybe 3 things that you've learned to be like, yeah, you know what, this seems to work to get through to the kids better than these things. Could you do that? Could you distill it down?
I don't think so. I think we love that, right? We love that. That's the golf pros make a living off having a theory. Like, if you get everyone to do this, that's going to be great. This is my swing move. And psychologists have their shtick, and coaches have, hey, this is my thing. And if you all do this, the truth is, if you look at the very best golfers, they all do it very differently. There is no way. There is no template. Again, templates sell books. They sell lessons. But everyone's journey is just so different. So a good coach or a good parent, I think, has an ability to kind of get beyond their framework and just really be into the student themselves, each one. Everyone's body is different. Everyone responds to different types of stimulus. Everyone gets nervous in different situations. Everyone's different when they're fatigued. Everyone's mechanics are different. Everyone plays for different reasons and responds to different negative things. I mean, I think the best coaching is to really truly know each player and coach them individually. And I think so for players, what I say is, hey, you need to know what you do. You need to know why you do it. And you need to know that it works. And so those answers are probably, I mean, if that's a template, fine, but it's going to be different answers for everybody, because everybody does it a little different way. Everybody needs to know that their way for them is the right way. And they need to know why, they need to know why that works. So yeah, it's, you read a book on Tiger Woods' dad did this, so I must do this. No, I mean, I see parents that are totally different types of parents that do it totally different ways that it works. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that we won't come to some principles that I think are really important here, but I don't know that I can distill it down to a few keys. I do think that it's important that it be driven by the golfer themselves, the student themselves. I tell parents all the time that I think when you care too much, or coaches, when you care more than they do, I think it's good to empower them to make their own decisions, to give them responsibility and accountability. Obviously that increases with age. There's a time early on where maybe they're not able to handle all of that, and the parent can play a larger role. have built my coaching and my philosophy around just, the idea of deep belief in oneself and coaching. I help try to help my players just grow their belief in themselves, not phony belief, not just positive thinking, but what can you do to, be more confident when you're standing on the first tee and on the 18th fairway. So those are some things I talk about. There's a lot more, but yeah, I don't know that there's a template. A good coach coaches each one individually in my mind.
It does make a lot of sense. And when you're looking from a recruiting standpoint, there's a lot going for ASU. You've got the facility, you've got the coach, you've got the winning pedigree. What are you looking for with the recruits? Because I mean, for the most part, you're having the pick of the litter here, and not everybody's come from the same cloth, like you said. They're coming from different backgrounds, different kind of parental involvement, different motivations, intrinsic levels, winning pedigree themselves. Kind of like, what's the first thing that you're looking at before you kind of like what's the first like layer that kind of separates in the recruits, and then from that kind of smaller pool of recruits, what kind of is important to you that you're looking at based on experience?
I think for us, the first layer is obviously just their consistency of performance and their results. I coached at Washington before, and I actually coached a lot of Canadians there, and there I had a little
Nick
bit more
Taylor
of trying.
and
Yeah, lots actually. It was Nick and James Lepp and Darren Wallace and Charlie Hughes and Kevin Kwan, missing Kevin Spooner, missing some, but anyway, Gordy Scott. At Washington, I felt like I was often, always trying to beat the system, always trying to find the diamond in the rough, trying to find somebody who was really good, but whose results maybe aren't quite showing it yet. I felt like even though we were a powerhouse program, we had a slight bit of being an underdog and needing to kind of outsmart. At ASU, it's a little bit different, as you said, where we feel like we can get anyone and we might have the pick of the litter. And it feels like it's more of a risk to take somebody who isn't as developed in their results. And it's funny, that's a trap. It's a trap because, man, you look back on some of those players that were underdogs and they're way better than the top players that, and how they turn out. So there's a balance there of me trying to just go off the rankings and the best players that consistently produce the results. And then everybody knows they're going to be the top ranked kids in the class, and finding those that, you look at through your 4 years from now glasses and maybe they're going to be better than the ones that are at the top right now. So that's important to me. But to answer your question, first thing you look at for us is results. It's kind of the basic, even those even the underrated ones would have significant, really significant results. I say this often, and I said it in the previous answer, like I want to know what a kid believes about himself. And it's not what he says. It's not, what his psychologist helps him think or his parents answer for him. It's what deep inside does he think of himself? Because I just have this personal belief that at the end of the day, we all get exactly out of life what we believe in our heart we deserve or are worthy of. Not even as golfers, but just as humans. So I am trying to always try to figure out what do they really think of themselves and what do they. So I ask questions and it's funny how you ask one person how they feel about a tournament and they're jumping for joy for a 5th place finish. And they think that's awesome. And I'm like, okay, so he's pretty happy with that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you talk to another one who's just raging upset with a 3rd place finish. And that's interesting. That's an interesting note. Or even how they describe what happened. Was it bad luck? Do they take their own accountability for it? I find that the very best players, they can be pretty self-critical. They are often unhappy with their results. I don't know that this is the key to happiness, but it seems to be a key to progress in golf is being willing to kind of be hard on oneself without losing your confidence that, hey, I'm still a great player, but yeah, I'm struggling right now, or my putting stinks. Yeah, I finished 4th, but I should have been way better than that. I mean, not in a phony way, but truly inside feeling like they should have done better. There's those that finish 4th and feel satisfied and don't practice for a couple of days because they just reached their goal. And there's some that finish 4th and are so mad that they go to the range for 3 hours after to fix all their problems. And those are all clues and keys on, where someone's going to end up.
There seems to be kind of two schools that are forming right now when it comes to goal setting and kind of trusting the process of getting better, as opposed to like focusing on some sort of destination. Where do you fall in that? Do you have your players kind of set goals for the season, or do you kind of focus on, just the process every week and letting the results just kind of take care of themselves, or maybe a hybrid model?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me because I've always been a little bit anti-goals. I've never liked goals. I have woken up every day of my life with just this massive amount of motivation and energy that I found goals limiting and confining. And so I never, as I get a little older though, I'm finding that I need goals on the things I don't like. So maybe my nutrition or my exercise, two things that I don't love. I don't wake up every day excited to do, to go work out. Sorry, some people do, but it's not me. I do wake up excited. I don't need to set a goal to read a lot of books because I'm going to do that. I don't need to set a goal to go into the office early because I wake up every day. I mean, I just can't get there soon enough. So those are things that I don't know. I've always just felt like what I have is actually, I have these key beliefs, and these key beliefs are basically what I believe is possible for my program, for myself, and they're kind of directional beacons, I guess. They're not like, hey, if I don't achieve these things, I'm a failure, but it's every day I want to push things a little closer to them. So a simple key belief could be like, I believe that, that ASU can become a dynastic program. And even though there haven't been any in college golf for 30 years or more, I still think there's room for it to happen, that we can do it. Well, that's a powerful belief. And every day I want to move closer to that. Or it may be like, I believe I can be, super fit and mobile and active at age 70. And so that means, well, obviously if I have that bright in my mind, that I'm going to get up and work out, and I'm going to eat right, and I'm going to work on my mobility and keep my brain sharp. So anyway, that's kind of how I've worked. I guess you could call those goals, but they're more pictures in my mind that just drive me toward them. Now, like I said, I have found that there's things I don't like to do. And I have found as I get older that I need to make goals on those things. But if you need to constantly set goals to practice, try hard, to get up early, I mean, I would probably question how much you really like, and I don't know if you'll have staying power in that thing. I've found that the golfers, I mean, it's good to be organized and structured, but man, the best golfers, they seem to just have a constant energy toward the goal, and not the goal, toward the vision they have for themselves. Lately, I mean, James Clear, other people have been so, this idea of compounding and the little things and 1% every day and make habits easy. And, your habits are what determine your life. I mean, I get all that. But I think that comes naturally for the highly motivated, in the areas that they're highly motivated. And I think it comes not naturally, in the areas where you're not, or where you're not good. Like I'm trying to learn another language right now. Well, you know what? That's not fun. It's hard. I don't wake up every day just really, dying to do it. I need to say, okay, let's make sure I get 3 hours of study a week, because it's not easy and it's not natural for me. So I guess, yeah, I'm kind of a hybrid on the answer.
But it was so well said, because it's like my big takeaway from that is that if you have some kind of like keystone beliefs, almost like North Star type beliefs, well, then all the goals and all the rest of that, they're always going to kind of serve that. And if every day you're keeping that in your forefront, it just makes it easier, because you always kind of know what you're waking up to strive towards, and just kind of naturally you almost allow the universe to surprise you into like what you feel like you need to work on that day, or what opportunities come up, knowing that you're always heading in a certain direction. So I think it's really, really wise. And I think that you've hit on something incredibly profound there. But then there's also going to be certain things, like you said, that we need to do, that we may need to kind of muster up some artificial motivation through goals or whatever it might be, just to get them down, knowing that they're going to serve us down the road. Makes a lot of sense. Now, you touched on, like you've coached and been around No, please.
I think, you know, the reaching of the goal is the problem. You get a little bit of a satisfaction that comes with it, but there's almost always a letdown when you reach the goal. How many of us hit a target weight and then fall off, or, you know, go a certain amount of time doing something, and then once we get there, we fall off? That's what I don't really love about it. It feels like it kind of limits our, like, to me, you know, I used to run a lot, and what I found was, and this is not anything too profound, but I really did learn this. Like, if I said, hey, I'm going 5 miles, the last mile is always terrible. Maybe the last 2 miles. Like, it's just like, oh, when is this going to get over? And as soon as it's over, I'm done. If I'm going 7 miles, it's the exact same thing on the last 2 miles. If I'm going 10 miles, the last 2 miles are the exact same thing. And whenever you're done, you're done. But if I just go run because I love to run, all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Yeah, I only have to go 4 miles today, but you know what? I might go 8. I might go 10 because I just love running, and I'm going to keep going as long as I feel like it. What happens is you hit that 4 mile point that if all you were doing was 4 miles, you would be spent at this point, and you're cruising because you love it and you just keep going. So I try to have that mentality in everything, you know, like, don't do it to reach the goal. Do it because you love doing it, and you could do it forever, and you want to just keep going.
You know, that is profound. I know you said that maybe it isn't, but it actually is. And I've recently started getting into running myself. I was, you know, trying to be fit and signed up for a couple half Ironmans, and never ran even a 5K in my life, or let alone a 5 miles, and didn't really know how to swim. But it's amazing how when you think that you're done and you can't go anymore, it's just mental. And then you find that second wind, and you're right. If you put those artificial kind of constraints on yourself, your body will just shut down before that, just knowing. Yes. I'm basically repeating what you said to validate that it's 100% true. And it seems to kind of confirm the fact that if you love what you're doing, and if you love the process of just getting better and whatever it is that you're shooting for, that's really where the journey is, and that's where all the kind of good stuff is. Going to more
Nike had a slogan a few years ago. Sorry, there's a little delay. Nike had a slogan a few years ago. I'll just end with this on that.
Yeah, we're a little delayed, please.
Nike had a slogan said, there is no finish line. And I'm sure everyone's heard that, but I love that. Like, goals to me are a little too much about a finish line, where I think you run to run because you love to run as fast and as far as you can. I'm done now.
Yeah, perfect. Leave it up to the ad guys at Nike to come up with something that's impactful and stays. I'm curious on, you've coached a lot of absolute championship players. A lot of guys have gone on to have great careers in the PGA Tour, elite juniors, elite college players. What have you seen, though, I'm curious what you've seen that's maybe an underrated aspect of the mental, physical, and emotional game of elite level players? There's a lot of things that seem to be obvious of what makes people good, but what's something underrated that you've seen that actually also has a really big impact when it comes to the mental, physical, and emotional state?
You know, this is kind of the first answer that comes to my mind, and it's not even a golf related answer, but almost every one of them, this is interesting, and I don't know, this is taking it in a weird direction, but almost every one of those guys was in a very healthy girlfriend, marriage, deep, close relationship situation, that they had someone to talk to be their biggest fan, to help them in the journey. I've found that again, there's all versions of these relationships. You know, it could be a deep friendship, could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, long time, could be a distance relationship, could be a marriage. But I've always been amazed at the power of having that person at your side. And also I've been amazed at watching the opposite happen when someone's in a rocky relationship that's messy and emotional, or in and out of them, or chasing it, and how that erodes kind of their journey. So there's something powerful and special about having, and I don't think it's just a parent. I don't think the parent's a given. Like, the parent's always got to be there. And I'm not saying everyone should go out and find this person, but man, when you have that over and over and over, I see the healthy, deep relationship outside of the game strengthening somebody within the game to help give it perspective. I would say another thing is, as driven as they are and as hard as they push and as hard on themselves as they are, there's also an ability to kind of forgive themselves and move on and not beat themselves up too much, even when they struggle. I know that sounds contradictory to what I say, because they can be very hard on themselves. It never like gets personal. They never beat themselves down. They're very self-critical and analytical and can get frustrated with themselves, but they don't ever seem to feel, woe is me, or I suck, or I'm terrible, or what am I even doing out here? That's not it. It's more like, hey, I got to get better. And this wasn't good enough. My practice isn't working. I got to get back to work. There's a difference in mentality. One is feeling sorry for themselves. One is like a righteous indignation, an ability to forget, hey, yeah, I'm going to make some mistakes. So what? A lot of them. Let's move on. So I'd say there's two things. That key other relationship, which I don't think I've ever answered this question with that, but I'm just seeing it over and over again. And then the ability to, while pushing oneself hard, not beating oneself down too much.
I think that probably goes back to your philosophy of that core belief about yourself. If you believe that you can be great, then you may get frustrated with yourself, you may get down on yourself, but because your core belief is that you have more in you, it almost motivates you then to get better. Whereas if your core belief is that you're not really good enough, or that you don't deserve to be there, or whatever that might be, then I think that might spiral. Then if you're getting down on yourself, it'll spiral into a real kind of negative spiral.
100%. I agree exactly with that.
For someone that's kind of interested in just kind of getting behind the curtains, from a coaching perspective, what's a typical week at ASU look like for the players? So maybe you just finished a tournament and you've got just like your average player. How are you coaching them? What's a typical kind of like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Like how does that look, and how do you cater that for each player?
So they'll play 14, 15 tournaments a year. So that's the one thing, is there really aren't that many of these typical weeks, but there are some, and I'll answer the question. But it's I would say the common theme of it all is either coming back from a tournament and recovering from that, or ramping up to a tournament. The time in between those two things is actually kind of rare, and I will answer what those times are. But I would say that most of the experience is recovering and ramping up. If you're not doing that and you actually have time in the middle to kind of just settle in for a week and do our thing, for us, school is early in the morning. We're done by 11:30. Everybody on the team's done by 11:30. ASU has a lot of classes and a lot of majors, so we can easily get that done, all of our classes in the morning. Actually, we have, our weather is such here, and we have access to facilities that sometimes our guys will go play a quick round even before school. They'll go out to Papa, go jump in a cart and play a 2-hour round first off, and play a round before school, which I think is pretty cool. But they would do that on their own. That's not a team deal. So assuming everybody goes to class, there's some guys that have mostly online and won't even have to go to class in person, or will have very little class in person. But let's just say everybody's typically doing their classes in the morning. We have lunch together at our facility. We have it delivered every day where they can order what they want. This is pretty cool. We sit around a big table. And it's not like we have a starting point and an end point, but the food arrives and guys come in from the locker room or show up from school or from the practice facility and kind of gather around, have lunch together. It's really awesome. And then we have practice. So practice would be either at our facility doing your own thing with coaches, there available and overseeing it, or it might be, specific team practices with competitions and drills for a certain amount of time that's usually measured and competitive and, fun and choreographed. We'll do that, every day that we're not at a course playing. We try to play 3 days a week at a minimum. So if we aren't in a tournament, we'll make sure we get a few rounds in where we keep a score and, have them stay competitively sharp. Obviously on tournament weeks, we don't have to try to make sure we get those rounds. So practice will end 5, 6, somewhere in there. We have our workouts actually in the afternoons after practice, which for many years, teams would always do it in the morning, and I did too. And players would be so tired. They'd show up tired. They'd finish the workout and they'd be so tired sometimes they'd go back to sleep instead of going to class. So another thing here is just because of proximity of things and daylight and everything. I mean, we have a lot more flexibility on this. And so we started doing workouts in the afternoon, and it's really been a nice thing for us after practice. And then, have dinner. We actually also have a dinner available to our student athletes here at our facility where they can eat at the restaurant every day. And then the evening for them, it's usually a little study, hanging out. Our guys spend time together, whether it's watching shows or playing ping pong or going out to eat. They usually are together doing something and wake up and do it again the next day.
You're describing a heck of a life, a heck of an experience.
It's unbelievable.
A collegiate experience. I can only imagine. You mentioned when you're not recovering from a tournament or ramping up from a tournament. I know that this is kind of a delicate balance as a coach or as a parent when you're trying to kind of, like you said, recover or take the lessons away from the tournament. How have you managed that to make sure that, because players are going to be in a state, if they're not playing well or if they are playing well, you don't want to maybe over compliment, beat them up too much. How do you handle that? And when do you handle kind of being constructive with the criticism, lavish with the praise? How do you handle all of that?
Yeah, I have found that one of the worst things you can do as a coach is be just out of tune with how they feel about the performance. So let's just say I have a great player that finishes 12th and I think he played terrible and I'm frustrated. I'm like, man, he's so much better than that. If I come at him and, take that angle or have that spirit behind me, he may say, no, Thurmond, man, that was a good week for me. I was sick. I didn't feel like I had my game and I couldn't have shot a shot better. If I'm coming this direction, he's coming this direction, we're not going to be on the right page. So I have found that just the simple question is so powerful. Before I say anything, before I have too many opinions, just ask them, how do you feel about your tournament? And let them tell me how they feel. And then I put myself in a position where I now can kind of build a direction of where this needs to go in the coming days to process and improve from the tournament. Because they'll say, oh man, I feel horrible. I just played terrible and I suck. And then I can maybe build them up and say, no, that's not true. Or maybe, they say, oh, I did awesome. Maybe I don't think that, but I just say, you know what? Yeah, you were awesome. Great job. What do we want to work on this week to get ready for the next one? So I don't know. I've found that parents and coaches so often feel like they have to have all the answers. You're going to be much more likely to have them listen to you if you get their answers first and you just kind of build on what they say. If you're in conflict with what they feel about the tournament, you're probably going to just fight about it and not get anything across. But if they can really articulate in detail how they feel, what they did well, what they didn't do well, then it's easy to say, okay, so let's work on this then. Would you like me to help you with that? Like, okay, yeah, great. That's, because they said it. It was their idea. So that's the way I do it on the back end. And obviously that flows into the next one too, because now you take what you learned here and you say, hey, remember we talked about this after the last tournament. How you doing on that? How are you preparing? You feel like you've addressed that this last week. And is there anything we can do in the final days leading up? How can I most help you? You know what? I'll walk with you and I'll remind you. Would you like me to do that? Yeah. So I just think listening. And I'm not great at it. It's a goal I have every year to get better. See, I have a goal. I'm not great at it. Listening.
Something you're not great at, yeah.
Listening and letting be their idea and then just building on it.
Well said. And then as you alluded to, then when you're ramping up from a tournament, you're taking what you learned on kind of the come down from the previous tournament, and you're really asking them, are they prepared? Maybe it was the strategic decisions, maybe it's short game, hitting more fairways. Do you go into the next tournament with goals in mind to hit more fairways, more greens? Is it more just like you put in the work for the practice and just let what happens?
I would say my style is probably a little bit more like just keep getting better at everything and it'll be fine. I think it's oh, I hit my driver bad this week, so I'll practice my driver a lot and then everything will be fine because I already have these other things figured out. Well, that's not how golf works, like as soon as one thing works, the other one goes away. And so I probably lean much more just kind of keep getting better at all areas of the game and take it as it comes for the next tournament. But there is something in their mind that helps them feel prepared, maybe and a little more confident and ready when whatever they did wrong last week, they've specifically addressed, and now they know that's fixed, even though it's not. I think there's something to that for sure. We do specific things as we get closer to a tournament. We'll be looking on Google Maps and we get some strategy stuff prepared. We'll start talking about the holes. I'll set up par threes on our practice facility. They're the likely distances, and we'll practice those or different looks. We'll hit specific shots that we think we're going to need, like certain types of tee shots and shapes of tee shots, different clubs. So we start to get specific in the days leading up. I'll always give them some sort of scouting report on what the course demands. And hey, this is a course where the greens are large and slopey and fast, and leg putting is going to be vital. So we like to focus on that during that time, again, to make them feel like, hey, we knew this was coming and we prepared for it, and so we're ready. So whatever it is, it's always different depending on the course. If you played it years before, it helps you with that. But I would say in general, when you have a lot of time just working on all areas of the game, right after a tournament, focusing on specifically what you did well and what you didn't, letting them lead it, doing general practice in the middle, and then ramping up with more specific things related to, where they are in their game and also what the course is going to demand.
Get better with the practice. Is it a combination of block practice and random practice? What have you found to be the most effective way to get better at specific areas of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I probably sometimes side a little more. I'm kind of more the variable practice guy, the one rep, ultimate variety and creativity. And I'd say Thomas, our associate head coach, is probably much more of a block practice guy. And that's a good combination. Some people really love a lot of block practice. I mean, I believe no matter what, you should at least start every day knowing that you have the same setup and alignment, you have the same posture, you have the same grip. If you don't have a system to make sure the most basic things are spot on every day, you're killing yourself. So, take weekly video of your putting stroke and setup just to make sure you're on track. That way, when things go wrong, you can rule out some of the main possible culprits. You're like, no, I know these things are right. So I would say another one of those things is like the rhythm and pace of your swing. That's something to keep a very close eye on all the time. Some people use a metronome or some sort of, counting or timing to make sure that, because, if you speed up a lot or slow down, that's pretty significant change. But I don't know. I would say have enough block practice to know that you got your basics right all the time. But then from a competitive standpoint, to really be prepared for tournament golf, I think you need lots of variability, high challenge in your practice, a lot of one ball, full routine shots under pressure. I think that stuff's at the end of the day, the best stuff that gets you most ready for hitting the big drive on 18.
But what are some artificial ways that you can manufacture pressure in a practice situation?
Well, we have drills that we do consistently, and we put them on teams. So anytime you team up somebody, that adds pressure because you're accountable to other people. Anytime people are watching you, that adds pressure. So we'll invite people to see practice. We'll slow down the number of reps so that everybody watches. The whole team or half the team watches the shot. That alone just adds massive amounts of pressure. And then we track results so that, there's a certain accountability that that it's going to be recorded and posted. So that's valuable too. Those are just a few artificial ways. We usually, this sounds bad, but we make sure every practice has those that finish at the top and at the bottom so that they at least feel that, these are super high achieving high ego, achieve, type A people, and nobody wants to be at the bottom of a practice, no matter what it is or how insignificant it is. So just having a scoreboard, keeping track in a fair way adds a lot of pressure.
Is there a consequence to finishing last in a practice other than just the sociological kind of like the social, I guess, pressure or the that comes with it?
Yes. Usually for us, it's some sort of cleanup duty. It's fix all the ball marks, pick up all the balls, go around the facility. And then we have this kind of wash that collects a lot of golf balls. When it's really time, I make the bottom three go clean up balls in the wash. They're not terrible things, but still that act of having to go out by yourself or with a couple guys, and while everyone else is relaxing and laughing after practice, you're out there cleaning. It's something. Nobody wants to be that person.
Nobody wants to be that guy.
No.
Effective. Matt, off air, we're sharing our love of books and some impactful books. If you were to suggest mandatory reading for maybe one or two books for an aspiring junior player to read and one or two books for a parent to read, a parent or a coach, if I had to put you on the spot, what would be those one or two books that you would suggest that the player and the parent or the coach read?
For parents, for me, no question, the answer would be Carol Dweck's Mindset. I think every parent has to read that book. I actually just reread it last month. My wife also reread it, and we'd read this a couple times already before, and I think it had a significant impact on how we parented our kids. And we read it again. Man, that's a book we should read every year. It's just so good. It may not be the most riveting reminder, most riveting read, and some of the examples may be older, and so I don't always recommend it for students themselves because it's a good read, but it's not a great read. But the content and the understanding that you take away is super valuable. So that's the first book that comes to mind for me, and I think students would benefit from that too. Let me think about. Yeah, that's the one I'm going to say for now. I'm not thinking of a good second one at the moment.
That's okay.
Although I
And
have
you
a lot
would
of
say
them.
suggest that book for both parents and the players to read.
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome. Any parting kind of advice for, I mean, most of the listeners listening right now do have kids that are interested in golf or are playing in the junior golf kind of circuits. It's not easy being a parent. It's not easy kind of managing your own, expectations and desire to kind of help your kid, as well as, not squeezing the baby bird too much and, having your child be one of the statistics where I guess it's almost 70% drop off when they're hitting 14, 15, just because of the pressure or didn't really love the game. Like, what advice would you give to parents that are listening right now and to just kind of navigate their own child's journey in junior golf and to do it the best that they can?
So first of all, if your child is going to be a star, you won't really need to motivate them. You don't need to push them to get out there and practice. Like, that's going to be in them. And if they don't have that, you pushing and forcing it is not going to help. They'll just go away from it quicker. And it's okay if some find that this isn't for them. It takes a lot. And, my daughters were never into it. And I'm totally fine with that. They did other sports, and when their time came to quit, that was fine. They still learned a lot from it. So if someone quits, it's not a failure. It's just a change of direction. And I think my daughters, what they learned from their swimming and gymnastics has helped them so much in everything after. So they're gaining a lot by just doing the sport and competing and being accountable and working hard and being a part of a team and having their name on a scoreboard. All that stuff's super, super valuable. I would say that now, if you do have someone that is truly an awesome player and has a future, it would be hard to understand just how much pressure they're under. Parents, unless they've done it themselves, have no idea the burden that kid carries and how much every day they live and die with each shot and each round, knowing that they're being judged and evaluated and measured constantly by everyone around them. And so what I would say is, as a parent, if I had a really good athlete, golfer, I would do everything I possibly could to take pressure off them. Unfortunately, a lot of parents do the opposite. They add pressure. They make it a bigger deal. They tie up their own happiness and their own like life, purpose to their child's results. They say things like, "We shot 74 and we scheduled these tournaments." No, no, no. This is your child. Let that be theirs. Be happy regardless of whether they play well or not. Can you imagine the pressure on a 14-year-old kid, for instance, knowing that the state of mind of their parents, whether they're going to be happy or sad, is based on how well they play golf today? I mean, doing that to a child is just torture, in my opinion. Like, child wants more than anything to please their parents and to feel like, man, if I don't play well, they're going to be unhappy and they're going to be upset with me. Like, boy, that's not good for their mental health, for their long-term growth as a player, or for the relationship with the parent. So I would say, if anything, just take pressure off. They're going to put a lot of pressure on them. They already have so much pressure on them, more than you can imagine. Let them do it. Help them carry it. Don't make it out to be a bigger deal than it is. That's the big thing I would say. And especially, don't let your happiness or your state of mind or who you are as a person ever be wrapped up or associated with the results that your child gets on the golf course.
Mic drop, hard stop, period. Fantastic. What great advice. Matt, if people want to follow ASU's kind of journey and kind of follow along with you, are you on socials? What's the best way for people to kind of like follow along and kind of get in touch with you, or just to kind of watch the team success?
Yeah, both. I'd say best for us of all of our mediums is Instagram. That's where we put our most time and energy. I'm Coach Matt Thurmond, and our team page is Sun Devil and Golf. Sun Devil and Golf. We really actually try hard to take you behind the scenes and show you what life of college golfers really like. It's an account that isn't run by our media team, but it's run by the coaches. So we really do take you behind the scenes, and I think that's the best way to do it. And my personal account, I mean, I post here and there. Hopefully there's some valuable stuff, but I think the team accounts.
Matt, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.